All right, welcome everybody around the world. Welcome to all my subscribers. So I'm back after I haven't been on a hiatus. I've been looking after a dog for a few weeks and just not been able to do any streams, as some of you know. But it's been a few weeks now, but I'm back and I've gone through my own personal battles recently, as some of you know. But this message here is for the world. And, I've said all these type of things before, but every day in world news, further things are happening, further steps are progressing towards this, and it's just even more undeniable. So, just a quick recap to help show everybody how dead real all of this is, right? So, I've been warning about 2023 and 2024 being the final years since 2016 on YouTube with various channels that I've had. So I've been warning about these days. And certain things are supposed to happen before the end of days arrives, such as the nations that Ezekiel names specifically, the group of nations, he names each one, which would mount up for war against Israel. This is the final step, literally, that occurs according to the Bible before the Messiah and God's forces arrive. These nations will mount for war and attack, they will attack Israel. That's what it says. And when they do attack Israel, that's when the end will arrive. The Bible's very clear. And we can see that those events are coming true. Okay? And aside from that, all the other evidence that I've been saying since 2016 that points to these very years being the final years, all of those things have come true. Okay? But the world events now. So just driving it home for everybody. I've been claiming since 2016 that the 7 pillars of biblical prophecy, the 7 biblical prophecies, point to these being the final years. Now, if nobody bothers to read my book or, hear all the hundreds of videos I have on this, there's a lot of people out there in the world who never have. And welcome, man. But if nobody bothers to hear that scriptural evidence, they might just look at me as some type of loony. People have always been saying that the end of days are coming. So if you don't want to take the time to read the book, if you don't want to take the time to watch the videos, then what can I say? The world events are proving it. The world events are proving it. I'll say again, right? The Bible tells us in Revelation that the final 3.5 years will be marked by a lot of different disasters and plagues taking place in the earth, worse than ever before in the history. Okay? And if we look at the last 3.5 years, we can clearly see, so starting in around 2020, 2021, we know that major disease went across the world. That's undeniable. That affected everybody on the planet. Lots of people died from that disease. Okay? When my father passed away from cancer, one of the reasons he passed away so quick was because he couldn't get diagnosed and get his biopsy and get results because of all the lockdowns. Okay? He didn't get it in time. And when he did get it, you're going to die in a few weeks, and he did. Okay? Lots of people have been affected by that disease. But all the world disasters have been gotten worse. Okay? Hurricanes and typhoons went from being category 1, 2, and 3, and sometimes a 4, to the vast majority of them being 3, 4, and 5. It's undeniable that in these last 3.5 years, we've had the biggest, the most powerful, and the most frequent storms ever before. Okay? That's undeniable. The other thing, like I said, the nations that Ezekiel names and specifies would attack Israel in the end of days, that these nations would have something in common because they're all going to be, with each other and attacking Israel. This is coming true. Okay? It's coming true. And it's undeniable. Even in the prophecy of Zechariah, where he talks about the very same time period that Ezekiel is speaking about, he says that these opposing nations would do a surprise attack on Israel, that they would, plunder women and various things that he says. Those things came true in the October 7th Hamas attack. Okay? If you read the prophecy of Zechariah and you look at what happened, it's undeniable. Now, I'm not saying that October 7th attack was exactly the specific thing Zechariah was talking about, but it fits the exact template. It is what Zechariah foretold would occur. I don't want something worse like that to occur to fulfill Zechariah's prophecy. But the fact is that the prophet said that these opposing nations would do surprise attack upon Israel. They would plunder it, in the various ways without saying the graphic details, right? That Zechariah mentions. It says that the women will be lain with, okay, forcefully. That took place on October 7th and has been taking place since then with the hostages, okay? It's undeniable that the nations that are attacking Israel right now, okay, the ones that are banding together and supporting one another to attack Israel, it's undeniable that they are the nations that Ezekiel named, okay? It's undeniable, okay? And if we look at the world now, we have Israel being attacked by Lebanon, okay? And that's just one example. Now, I don't want to get too much into war talk and this and that there, right? But it's undeniable. So I just want everybody to let it sink in that back in 2016, when I was warning everybody that 2023 or 2024 will be the final year, I wasn't just a loony, okay? Because it's one of two things. If I was right, then the world would see 3.5 years of disasters, and they would see these nations come in and attack Israel. Well, that came true. Okay? And if those things hadn't happened, if for 3.5 last years we didn't have diseases breaking out and crazy disasters going bonkers, and if we didn't have this big attack on Israel, then people could say maybe I was just a loony. But how long is it now? 8 years ago, I warned everybody, and these things have come to pass. Okay? They're coming into fruition. They've already started. It's undeniable. At any given moment or day, these nations could mount up a major attack against Israel. It got one step even closer to all of this coming to fruition, because you had the Arab League of Nations recently, just in the last few weeks, maybe a month or so, they refused to classify Hamas as a terror organization. Okay, they not getting into the politics, right? But by doing that, what that means is that all of those 21, however many nations, are going to support Hamas because they don't view it as terrorist. This only further solidifies and validates what the prophecies warned, okay? That these named nations would be in unison together in their attack on Israel. It's coming true. You can't make this stuff up. There's no puppet master pulling the strings here. This is prophecy unfolding, foretold 2,000 or 3,000 years ago, about 2,500 years ago, depending which prophecy you're looking at. Okay, these things are undeniable. A few years ago, people could say, oh, well, you're just loony. You're one of those people saying the end is coming, right? I mean, mind you, if you look at the prophecy proof, you'd have reason to believe. But, if you don't look at the evidence that I've presented and you're just looking at the world events, you would have the reason to say, oh, you're just a loony like all the others. But guess what, folks? You can't deny it. When you've got a hurricane reaching 200-mile-an-hour winds, okay, and not just bigger, stronger, and more frequent storms, but they're meandering and hitting different places. Hurricanes, when I was growing up, didn't hit America. They didn't hit America. Okay? Where I live, we get hit by hurricanes. And we were always the victim of the hurricanes. America wasn't the victim of hurricanes. But in the last 3.5 years, guess what? The hurricanes have been hitting America all up the east side. They even go up into America. They go all the way up to Canada and hit Canada. Okay? And you just had a 200-mile-an-hour hurricane hitting different nations. 200. I'll tell you one thing. Where I live, we had a hurricane many years ago, not in the last 3.5, right? But we had a category 4 a number of years ago, maybe 15, 20 years ago. I wasn't here for that. I was overseas at the time. It was so devastating to my country. I was worried my country would be wiped out. It was that bad. The hurricanes, when I was growing up, the hurricanes were just hurricanes. Okay. But in the last few years or so, the hurricanes where I live and probably everywhere else, they're so powerful that they actually generate tornadoes. Okay. And where I live, we don't get tornadoes. But now, with the hurricanes being so strong, they literally create tornadoes, tons of them, randomly. And the tornadoes rip around. Mind you, they're not huge, giant tornadoes like you see up in America and stuff, but real tornadoes, strong enough to rip out giant trees straight up out of the ground. And when these big hurricanes rip through, I had a big cedar tree in my yard. Been there for 50 or 100 years, maybe 50 years. I think my grandfather planted it, or my great-grandfather. And my house, thank God, stood still in the hurricane. But I came out after the hurricane, that tree was ripped out and gone. Okay? Driving around my country after some of these major hurricanes in the last few years, big, huge, huge trees. The tree trunk isn't just ripped out, the roots. Do you know how much strength it takes for something to pull a giant tree out of the ground with all of its roots? And you're driving down the road and you just see row after row of these giant trees, like 50 to 70 foot tall trees with trunks like 3-4 feet wide or so to each their own, with roots, big, thick, woody roots, maybe 15, 20 feet wide, just flopped out on the ground because they got plucked out like a hair. Okay? The storms are ridiculous. Okay? I can't speak. I'm not an expert on tornadoes and earthquakes. But it's just undeniable. Okay? There's too much activity. Whether you like me talking about this or not, there's too much activity with UFOs going on. There is just simply too much. And if you look at the actual raw data and statistics, visible UFO sightings are so frequent now, they're almost commonplace. And I would say the average person has either seen one themselves or knows somebody. When I was growing up, people didn't see UFOs. Okay, it was like one of those mythical things like Bigfoot. You know what I mean? The only photos of them were few out there on the internet, and they were blurry and looked terrible. Well, nowadays, there's so many blinking UFOs flying around everywhere that world governments are acknowledging their existence. Okay, even America is acknowledging them. Even the Pentagon and the military is acknowledging, yeah. And they release the videos and saying, yep, these are UFOs. We don't know what they are. Look at them zipping around, super fast, going up and down, impossible maneuvers, in and out of the ocean. We don't know where they're from. We don't know what they're doing. It's undeniable that there's a huge increase in activity. And the Bible told us that when the end is approaching, we would see signs in the heavens. The Bible also told us that when the end is coming, that as a sign, this is stated by the prophet Joel and repeated in the New Testament, it says that the skies will turn blood red. Now, growing up, I always thought, oh, that's ridiculous. How and why would the skies turn blood red? Well, in 2020, 2021, in these last few years, you can go find the photos and videos yourself. There were genuinely blood red auroras, just blood red. They weren't rainbow colored, blood red auroras filling the skies in numerous locations across the globe. Now, blood red auroras do happen, but they are infrequent. And in my research, the last time they occurred was 60 years ago. So you can't say, oh, that's just a frequent thing. What we're seeing are all the signs from the Bible coming true. Okay? And it's undeniable. And when you pair those visible, tangible world events with the biblical prophecies, it's absolutely undeniable. Like I've said before, and I cover in chapter 1 of my book here, Everybody in Judaism and Christianity knows the concept of God's divine week. A day is 1,000 years. Psalm 90 says so. Okay? God created the earth in 6 days, and on the seventh he rested. There have been 6,000 years, all accounted for, to the last digit, in chapter 1 here, with all the Bible verses, everything supplied by the Bible, and it's undeniable that the Bible accounts for all this. Well, it counts up to the invasion of Babylon, and so I'm not getting into over complex discussion here. The Bible accounts for all the years up to the modern era. There's no denial. All the maths is on the page. All the verses are cited. It's been 6,000 years. This is the final of 6,000 years. Now, you could argue, oh, that doesn't mean the end's coming just because it's been 6,000 years. Okay, well, if you want to put that one on the side burner, what about the other 6 prophecies? Right? The other 6, Daniel's prophecy, the prophecy of Daniel in chapter 12. Okay? That pinpoints 2024. It's undeniable. Even the prophecy from First Enoch, which I cover in one of my chapters, discovery that I made, famous prophecy of Enoch about 4,900 years, the 70 generations. And it says in that prophecy from Enoch that 500 years before the flood is when this decree is to go forth. And that decree was that the fallen angels and their kindred and their children, their offspring, the Nephilim, will be bound under the ground, under the earth, under the mountains, in a prison, so to speak, for 70 generations, 4,900 years, according to the biblical chronology, which is mapped out every last digit in chapter 1. If I remember correctly, that's from 2951 BC, plus the 4,900 years takes you to 1948. I think 1948, 1949. 1948 is the year that Israel was reborn and became a nation again. It's the year that the Jews and Christians, the people of Israel, the people of God, actually bona fide got to return there. Okay? 1948 is the key number from Daniel's prophecy in chapter 12. Okay? It's exactly 1,260 years after the Dome of the Rock is built on the Temple Mount. Why does that matter? Well, Daniel foretold, okay, in chapter 7 and in chapters 11 and 12, he foretold the final beast kingdom, which is Islam. It would conquer Israel and rule over it for 1,260 years. Okay, it's stated in chapter 7 and it's stated in chapter 12. But Daniel gave more incredible detail. He said that there would be 10 initial rulers of this final beast kingdom. These were the first 10 rulers of Islam. And he says, yet an 11th will come after the 10. And this 11th one will mark the span of 1,260 years. So that span of time starts with this 11th one. What was so special about this 11th ruler of Islam? Okay, well, the 11th ruler of Islam was the 10th caliph over Islam. And that 10th caliph, I think it might have been Caliph, I won't try to remember which caliph it was. I might get the name wrong. But the 11th, it's in the book though. The 11th caliph, the 10th caliph, who was the 11th ruler, is the one who built the Dome of the Rock on the Temple Mount in 688 AD. And just like Daniel said, they would rule over Israel for 1,260 years. And from 688 until 1948, is 1,260 years. Not only that, Daniel asked God, well, what is the final end? When is the final end? And God tells him that there would be an additional 75 years because he says the 1,335th is the end. God calls it the end. Okay? And he tells Daniel in the second to last verse of Daniel's entire book, he says, blessed is he who waiteth earnestly and does come to the days and day year. Ezekiel 4 is a day year principle. Does come to the day year, 1,335th. What does that mean? That means 2024. Okay? The prophecy of Daniel pinpoints 2024. Is confirmed by the rebirth of Israel in 1948. Is confirmed by 688 AD. 688 AD is also 666 years after Jesus was baptized. Jesus was baptized in 23 AD. He died in 26 AD. This is proven by the simple arithmetic from Daniel 9. King Artaxerxes is the one that the Bible records and history records as giving the decree to rebuild Jerusalem street and wall. It doesn't say to rebuild the temple. It says Jerusalem street and wall. Well, Artaxerxes was the only king historically to make this decree. It's recorded in the Bible, literally, to rebuild the street and wall. He was the king who ordered that. Okay? And even has verses where it says, hey, look, they're building the streets and walls of Jerusalem by Artaxerxes' decree. And history confirms this. That was in 457 BC. His decree went forth. History confirms it. From 457, you count forward what Daniel says, 483 years, means Jesus died 26 AD. He taught for 3 years before he died. So he was baptized in 23 AD. 666 years after 23 AD is 689. In 689, the Dome of the Rock was being erected on the Temple Mount. And Jesus said that after, Jesus spoke of himself saying, after me, in the future, when you see the abomination being built on the holy place, which is the term for Temple Mount, you are to flee to the hills. Jesus gave the instruction for the final scattering of the people of God to get out of Israel when they see that abomination being built. Why would he say that? Because the beast kingdom, the worst of them all, is about to rule Israel for 1,260 years. History confirms that the Bible got it right and that all those things came true. And Daniel wrote these things, okay, hundreds of years BC, hundreds. Even if it wasn't Daniel himself, if Daniel himself wrote those words, it was 500 BC. If it was somebody else afterwards, a contemporary, arguably, even if, because it was found in the Dead Sea Scrolls as well, that's still 200 or 300 years BC. So which added to 680 something, that's still 1,000 years before the events transpire. It's a total of over 2,000 years from when Daniel wrote it, whoever wrote it, until now. This is thousands of years ago that these prophecies were written. Very meticulous prophecies with numbers given. If you were a charlatan trying to pull off a fake prophecy, why would you give specific numbers like that? Well, I mean, you could, but they wouldn't come true. The fact is, like I've said a million times, Daniel's book is true prophecy because all of the prophecies within it came true to the exact digit year. There's no room for argument. In Daniel chapter 12, Daniel's speaking to God, the angel, and asking him about the end of times and the timing of it and this and that there. And the angel tells Daniel God's message and says, from the completion of the scattering of the holy people is the measure of 3.5 times, which is 1,260 years. Now, remember, Jesus said, when you see the abomination being built on the Temple Mount, you are to flee to the mountains. Flee, scatter. It was built on the Temple Mount. The Dome of the Rock was built on the Temple Mount, 688. That's when the people finally scattered. That's further confirmation. You take that measure as per God's instruction in chapter 12 from 688. From 688, you had the 1260. It comes to 1948, the rebirth of Israel. 1948 is when Roswell had just happened. All the UFOs started crashing down to the earth. Does this sound familiar to anything? Like I just said, first Enoch's prophecy said that the fallen angels and their Nephilim offspring, fallen angels who fell from the heavens, would be bound within the earth for 4,900 years, which culminates in 1948. What showed up in 1948? Fallen messengers re-arriving and, ironically, re-falling to the earth, because God won't let them go up into the heavens anymore. He's bound them to this earth. Okay? They all started showing up. What did these UFO, the evil ones, what did these evil beings start doing to the world? I'm telling you now because I've done the research for 20 years. These beings, reptilians and grays and human-looking ones, they've been going around to world leaders and to random humans on the planet, abducting them, tormenting them, doing experiments on them, allegedly even interbreeding with them, allegedly. But this is exactly what Enoch says took place before the flood. and after the flood, when the sons of God, the B'nai Elohim, the denizens of the stars, came down to the earth, Satan and his minions, okay? And they bred with the people and bore the Nephilim. So in 1948, you have these beings emerging again. Now, I know my UFO lore. Where do the reptilians dwell? Underground on this very planet. Where do the Greys dwell? They live on this very planet underground. Okay? There are countless UFO genuine bona fide videos showing that these craft are emerging from out of mountains, in and out of volcanoes. Is proven. It's an absolute fact. One of the volcanoes in Mexico, I can't pronounce the name for the life of me, Popocatépetl or whatever it is. Live cams 24/7, UFOs flying in and out of them. Okay, so these beings, even according to UFOlogy lore, they are from underground. Put 1 + 1 together here. Enoch foretold this. The fallen ones reemerged after their sentence was up. 1948, they went to the world leaders, deceived them, teach their own, not all of them. They went to the world leaders and actually claimed, a lot of this is top secret info, they actually claim to be our creators. They have all sorts of technological wonders where they display falsehoods to fool people into thinking that they are our creators. This is a terrible thing that is being discussed at all these big UFO conventions and hearings. And one of the main reasons for the secrecy, interbreeding, just like before the flood. Okay, indoctrinations, just like before the flood. What did the fallen angels do before the flood, according to Enoch? They taught people how to make technology and weapons and gave them sciences that were beyond their normal control. Okay, and it was for these reasons, the interbreeding and the giving of technology and knowledge that the humans shouldn't have, that the fallen angels were punished. What are these fallen ones doing right now? What have they been doing since 1948? Look at the tangible world evidence. Anybody can see the following fact is true. If you go back in time in your mind and think, let's look at world technology in the 1940s, it was very, very simple stuff. We didn't even have color TVs. Okay? Around 1948 onwards, a huge boom in technology. It's undeniable. Okay? Perfectly correlating with that. And I know for a fact from things that have been declassified or revealed that a lot of our current technology was literally given to us by these beings, namely the Greys. Fiber optic cable, smart metals, memory metals, nanotechnology, all of this was gleaned from them starting in 1948. Okay? So the very thing that the fallen angels did back in time, they're doing again. It's what they do to fool people. If we read in Revelation, it says that there are unclean spirits who resemble frogs, amphibians, who will go around to the kings of the world, it says, and to the people of the world and deceive them and delude them with what's the word? It doesn't say false miracles, you know what I mean? But like signs and wonders, like false signs and wonders. This is a perfect fulfillment. For example, the Greys, from leaked and declassified information, they are partly amphibian. We can't properly categorize them, but they are partly amphibian. Again, the Bible foretold it all. Okay, the Bible foretold. I won't get into other things, but these are observable and tangible things that are going on in the world that only further confirm all of this. Okay, this isn't about making this about UFOs. This is, don't be lazy and silly. Snap to attention here and pay attention here. Okay, everybody sees UFOs now. I can go out any night and see UFOs. Don't tell me they're not real. Okay, I flashed flashlights at them and they flashed back. I had one shoot a blue beam of light down on me that illuminated my entire property as blue. Okay, they are dead real. And there's not going to be some secret American military craft playing flashlight games with me. Okay, these are beings observing us, flying around the earth. Is tangible. The Pentagon even declassified and let the public see a UFO video of a giant pyramid floating over, I think it was the Pentagon. A giant pyramid up in the sky, which was rotating. That's real. The government put the video out. So you can't live in a closet your whole life and think that these things aren't happening. They're really happening. They started in 1948, the same year that Israel was reborn, the year that the fallen angels were released, okay? And all of this ties into the biblical prophecies from Daniel and others, which all show 2024 is the end, right? There's 7 prophecies altogether I cover in the book, not just one, 7, okay? And they all point to 2024 as being the end. And when we combine all of that prophecy with the world, the tangible world events, such as the Gog-Magog named nations mounting war against Israel right now, there is no denial that the end of days is upon us. There is no denial, right? And we have this verse here from Hebrews 10, right? Hebrews 10:37. It says, oh no, I'll read from verse 36, even better. 35. It says, "You may not cast away then your boldness, which has great recompense of reward. For of patience ye have need, that the will of God having done, ye may receive the promise. For yet a very, very little, he who is coming will come and will not tarry. And we are not of those drawing back to destruction. And the righteous by faith shall live. And if he may draw back, my soul has no pleasure in him. And we are not of those drawing back to destruction, but of those believing to a preserving of soul." So it guarantees us that this return of the Messiah, the end of days, will not tarry. It's coming at a prescribed time. There's so many verses that talk about this prescribed time. Why is it described as a prescribed time? Because God said in chapter 12 exactly when the end would be. Okay? And don't think it can't happen this year. There's still 150 something days left to this year. 150 something days. It could come any one of those days. Jesus said that the end would arrive suddenly without warning. All the churches have been falsely deceiving people into thinking that there's going to be a 7-year period of an Antichrist. But that's not biblical. I have many videos talking about it, even covered in the book. There isn't a single verse anywhere in the Bible that says any of that. It's complete baloney. Okay? It is complete baloney. There's no mention of it. The Antichrist, it says about Antichrist, says that in the days of Jesus, the Antichrist was already there. There's a verse that says that. The Antichrist whom you heard would come is already here. It says that. Okay? And it says there are many Antichrists. And it also says in the New Testament that if you deny Jesus as the Son of God, you're an Antichrist. There is not a single verse anywhere that says there is an Antichrist who will rule over and oppress the world for 7 years. All of that is church baloney, coming from Satan to fool Christians into not being prepared. Of all the people on the earth who should be prepared, it's the Christians. But even all the Christians are looking for a 7-year tribulation period where there's going to be a currency, of 666 and all of this baloney. Well, guess what? All of those descriptions and prophecies about the false prophet, the lamb-like beast, we're talking about Islam. Islam is the only other religion in the planet which incorporates the Lamb, Jesus, into its theology. The only other religion. So when it says lamb-like and the false prophet would force the world to worship the kingdom of the beast. Okay? Put 1 + 1 together without me having to say it is very, very simple. And it says that false prophet who is lamb-like, okay, would do signs and wonders to fool people. Well, that prophet, that false prophet, did do signs and wonders. And if you go read their religion, they ascribe all sorts of signs and miracles to him. They say that he did all the miracles Jesus did. All of them. Anything Jesus did, he did. But they add to it and say he also split the moon in half. They ascribe him great power. There's even a hard to find text which says that, and they have discrepancy in there whether they believe hadiths or not. There's different groups even within that religion. Let's not get into petty arguments, but there is a scripture, I've read it myself, where it says that when their prophet made a sacrifice for God, that God approved it with fire coming from the heavens to consume the sacrifice. And those witnessing were like, oh, well, this is what happened with Moses. He must be a genuine prophet. This is exactly what Revelation says the false prophet would do. He would bring fire down from the heavens to fool the people. Okay, so you want to know who the lamb-like beast was, who was the false prophet? It was that figure. Okay, he already existed in history. What did he do? He created the beast kingdom, the beast empire. He died before he got to rule the empire, which is also what Daniel and Revelations foretell as well. Okay, it was the ones who came after him, the strong ones that came up out of him, like Daniel chapter 11 says, who would erect the abomination. The 10 caliphs who rose up after him. It was the 10th caliph, who is the 11th ruler, who built the abomination, the Dome of the Rock and the Temple Mount. They literally forced the known world to bow to their new God. Daniel said that the God of the beast kingdom, the final beast kingdom, would be a new God, an unheard of God that nobody knows about. It says that the founder who creates this new religion, even his own parents and family will have never heard of this God. That has come true with Islam. That is the history of Islam. Okay? Go study the origin of Islam, even from their own perspective. They'll openly tell you this about their own history. Okay? He created a new religion that even his own family had never heard of, this God. And he had to convince his family of this new God. And they didn't even believe him. And just like Daniel says, he would have to win over the people by flatteries. And this is how he concreted himself in there. And when he had finally a little band of people that believed him, they went around ransacking every town, city, and village they could, taking plunder, robbing, stealing money and wealth, enslaving people and forcing them to serve in their armies. And as they slowly grew bigger through coercion and extortion and all of those other things, forcing people to join them and this and that there, that's the only reason why they grew in power. Okay? They rewrote the Bible. What other religion on earth has done this? Daniel says they would do that. Daniel says in chapter 11 that they would rewrite the law. They did. It's the only religion on the planet that rewrote the Bible from start to back. They rewrote the law of God specifically. You can't get much more fulfillment than that. The final beast kingdom already took place. It's not going to happen 7 years at the end of days. It already took place. It ruled for 1,260 years. That rule came to an end in 1948 when Israel was reborn at the end of the Arab War, which was a war between Islam and Christianity and Judaism. Okay? At the end of that war, the victory was Israel was reborn, which is also tied into all the conflict taking place today. Okay? The conflict taking place today, who are the peoples in conflict with Israel? Members of Islam, okay, the beast kingdom. Daniel said in his chapters that with the great statue in his vision, the head was Babylon made of gold. Okay, then you had the silver torso. Then you had, what was it? You had the head, the torso. Anyways, the legs were iron, the final kingdom, right? Be divided, 2 legs. In Islam, you have Sunni and Shia. They're both Islam, but they oppose each other. They're separate from each other. Okay? And at the very, very end, right before the end arrives, which is at the toes, they mix in with the peoples around the world. This is what it says. Okay? What has happened historically? Because that religion and empire conquered most of the known world, and they still rule a huge portion of the known world today, by the way, the very nations that the Bible lists in the prophecies, that prophecy came true. They're everywhere around the world. I'm not demonizing them, right? I'm just stating facts, right? They used to be from Arabia and the Middle East. They conquered most of the known world. They spread their peoples and their culture throughout the known world. Most of Africa, a lot of Africa, believes that religion, okay? The whole of the Middle East believes that religion. And there's factions, different nations around the world that believe it. Their members are all around the world. So it's undeniable. Exactly what the prophecy says has come true. Okay, North Korea, you couldn't say the same about North Korea. North Korea is North Korea. They didn't take over the known world. They are isolated. They don't go around the world and mix and mingle with everybody. They're not allowed to. You know what I mean? But with the one I'm speaking about, they did. Okay? So it's absolutely undeniable that we are at the brink, the imminent arrival of the end days, and all it's going to take is for that final attack to take place on Israel for the Messiah to arrive. And like the verse says, he will not tarry. He is coming at an appointed time. Just like the Bible says, there is a prescribed and appointed time. It's the 1335th year from when the abomination would be erected on the Temple Mount. God told us when it will happen, and he instructed us. He didn't command us. He instructed us to count and know and wait for that day, that year. Blessed is he who waiteth earnestly and does come to the 1335th. You can't, come to the 1335th and know it and prepare for it unless you're counting it. God told us when it would happen. Okay? It's going to happen, and that's that. And if you look at the world, it's already started. Like I said, it's undeniable. So I don't know how much more needs to take place for people to believe, right? It's all, I shouldn't say there's no point getting the book at this point, but if you want to hear the, best condensed, concise compilation of all the prophecies and everything, the evidence, it's right here, $11.11. But it's pretty much pointless at this point here because we're probably just months away from this occurring, or even days. But like I was saying before, Jesus warned that the end would come suddenly. He compared it in 3 different analogies, like the days of Noah. And it even illustrates it further. It says we're only 8 souls out of the whole planet were saved. They were the only ones who believed that the end was coming and got ready. Okay? It also compares it to Sodom and Gomorrah, the day they were destroyed. The day the Sodom and Gomorrah were destroyed, the angels came and took the righteous out of that land. Because imminently and suddenly there came heavenly destruction upon Sodom and Gomorrah. And Jesus says, like that will be the end of days. And Jesus adds the third comparison where he says that people will be saying peace and surety, and then you will have sudden destruction. When you combine these 3 things that Jesus said, there's no room for a 7-year tribulation. Okay? When you look at the fact that 1,260 years of history of them ruling over Israel, there's no 7-year tribulation. When you look at the evidence that I said, we know who the Lamb-like false prophet was. He already played his part. He's already gone. The beast kingdom played its part for the 3.5 times, and it's still here, mingling in the toes, up until the very end, when the heavenly rock will come down and smash apart the kingdom, like Daniel's prophecy says. Okay, so all of those things have come to pass. When Islam conquered, by the way, when they erected the Dome of the Rock, they created a currency that had the Bismillah on it. The Bismillah is the creed in Arabic where you swear allegiance to Allah in your soul. The Bismillah, when written, is an identical match to what John wrote himself by his own hand in the original Greek manuscript for 666. John didn't write 3 6s. Okay? He wrote 3 different symbols because one is a unit of hundreds, one is a unit of tens, and one is a unit of ones. That's how those Greco-Roman systems worked. He wrote 3 different symbols. Those 3 symbols resemble 99% the Bismillah. Now, another thing people don't know, in Islam, they put the Bismillah on their forehead and on their right arm. What does Revelation say? That the name of the beast, okay, their God, their false God, will be on their foreheads and on their right arms. What do? They put it on their foreheads and on the right arms. It is literally an identical match, literally, to what John said would be this sign, the 660 and 6. The other thing is that he says that in Revelation, it says that they would create a currency and force everybody to use the currency or else you would starve. Well, let's look back at history. They did this. When they built the Dome of the Rock, they created a currency. They put the Bismillah on it. And if you didn't use that currency, you couldn't use any currency. You would starve to death. It already happened in history. Okay? Let alone the fact that they forced everybody to convert. And if you didn't convert, you know what happened. Okay? There's one of a few things. One of them involves shloop. The other one involves exile or slavery, or I think what's the term for it? I can't remember I don't know if it's demi or if that's something else. The only way out of it is by claiming a lower status than any other human. And by doing that, if you didn't convert, you could stay in that lowest class, but you'd be treated like an animal. You couldn't even walk on the same side of the road as a member of their religion. Jews had to wear an identifying mark. They had to wear a star. Christians had to wear belts. This is history. Go look it up. That religion, empire, imposed those things upon Jews and Christians, separated them in the populace, okay? And that's if you were lucky enough not to get exiled or schlupped, okay? And just go read any history book. Go read their own history books. They will proudly admit how they went around conquering every single city and tribe around them, growing their power, right? Rome was not the final beast kingdom. Rome's empire at its greatest extent is nothing compared to the size of the empire of Islam. By the way, the Roman Empire died and is dead and gone. It's been dead and gone for a very long time. The Islamic Empire still exists, okay? And it rules the very nations that Daniel says they would rule, okay? Egypt. Daniel says Egypt. Daniel says Cush. Cush means Africa. There is either Egypt or Cush. That's what the ancients regarded biblically with Africa. Okay? If you're of different translation, it might say Ethiopia, but it's Cush and Egypt. And Daniel says that they will be under the rule of this final beast kingdom. To this very day, they still are. Okay? So everything that was foretold has come true. And those opposing nations, members of the final beast kingdom, are literally the ones, members of Gog Magog, as Ezekiel specified, naming them off, okay? He names them off. It's Persia, it's Syria, it's Lebanon, Turkey. He names them in Ezekiel's chapters. These nations are Islamic. They are the ones attacking Israel. Gee, why are they attacking Israel? Well, it's because their book tells them to. Go listen. You don't believe me? Go listen to the actual creeds of these terror groups themselves. Hamas and Hezbollah. Go listen to what their own leaders define their modus operandi as. You will be disgusted and shocked. And the only reason that they have those modus operandi is because their book tells them that they should do it. Okay? That's the only reason. And that is why, because of that hatred, they are attacking Israel. The only reason they went into Israel on October 7th to attack them is because of their scriptural hatred. Okay? And I own a Quran. I own a Quran in Arabic and English. A very nice one with gold leaf on the front. Okay? And I've read, not the whole thing, but I've read it. And I've read verses where it prescribes this hatred and terrible things against non-believers. So don't tell me that it doesn't say that. I could pull out verses any day and read them and show them on the pages right for your faces to see. Okay? But people are ignorant to this. And for so long, people just ignored Islam and its history and what they did. Okay, Christians are thinking that it's Rome. They're thinking that there's going to be a 7-year Antichrist who's going to come and rule over. You're being disrespectful to all the Jews and Christians and others who suffered under the plight of the Islamic Empire since its origin. How many peoples were forced to convert, okay, and all sorts of other things back in history. There are terrible tales, horrible, famous examples of what happened to different Jewish and Christian communities where they were in mass forced to convert or else schlup, okay? They would do it to men, women, children. They would take women and girls as slaves for you know what, okay? It's hideous. It's evil. It's despicable. It's history. It's fact. It's undeniable. The history books will tell you this. Their own history books will tell you this. It's undeniable. And for any Christian today to be so pompous as to think, oh, I'm just going to ignore all of that history and Oh, gee, I'm lucky that I live in this current day. It must be a 7-year Antichrist at the end of it. You're just ignoring all of the plight that the people of God went through for 1,260 years. You're ignoring all of that plight. Part of that plight is still standing on the Temple Mount right now. The Dome of the Rock is still standing there. Okay, so you know what I mean? And Jews and Christians aren't allowed to go in there. They have strict rules. This is what makes me laugh. Everybody's fussing over Israel, saying that it belongs to this person, that person. I have one simple thing to say to that. Look at the Temple Mount now. What's on it? The Dome of the Rock. That's Islamic, right? Yeah. Well, what is the Dome of the Rock built on top of? Go read the Islamic texts themselves, and you will see that they built it on top of King Solomon's temple, the Jewish temple. So who was there first? It's the remnants of the Jewish temple that they built on top of. So why we're even having this argument today on whose land it is preposterously ridiculous. Okay? But everybody just ignores this. Okay? So anyways, we are right at the door. Oh, and that reminds me, Jesus said in the New Testament that when you see the fig tree putting out new growth, that it means that I am nigh and imminent at the doors. The fig tree, biblically, is Israel. There are verses where it confirms this. So when Israel is reborn, Jesus is nigh at the doors. Israel was reborn 1948, the famous date in all the prophecies. Okay? So in 1948, Jesus was ready at the door because it's the final generation. 75 years. That's all that's left. It culminates. It ends this year. Okay? 1948, what also happened? Oh, that's right. The Second World War, where they tried to exterminate the members of Judaism. Okay? The children of Israel. They tried to, not they, Islam, but you know who, tried to exterminate them with World War II. I mean, how could we forget that? No matter how you look at it, there are too many key important things happening in this 1 year, or that, 1948 period. The other thing, Dead Sea Scrolls were found 1947, 1948. The Dead Sea Scrolls. Before the Dead Sea Scrolls were found, the oldest copies of the Tanakh were from like 500 to 1000 AD. They were more recent than the New Testament. There were no physical copies of the Tanakh books, any of them, that were older than the medieval ages until they found the Dead Sea Scrolls. They found the Dead Sea Scrolls in the same year period that the World War II wrapped up, that Israel was reborn, the Arab War ended, Israel was reborn, UFOs all start showing up, the fallen angels, Dead Sea Scrolls are found. All of this taking place in that very short little 1 year chunk. Okay? It is absolutely undeniable. We look back at that year thinking, oh, it's so long ago. It's such a long time ago. Jesus taking so long to come. We don't know when he's coming. No, 75 years isn't that long. That's nothing. That's a drop in the bucket. You know what I mean? 75 years ago, most of your grandparents were alive. It's not that long ago. Give me a break. Most people live 75 years. It's a lifetime. That's all it is. It seems like a long time to us, but 75 years is just a lifetime. Okay? And what can I say? What can I say, right? What more can I say? I've made hundreds of videos over the years. I've written 2 different books, right? How much more can I warn people? You got even Yemen, another nation now attacking Israel. They attacked Israel 200 times before Israel retaliated the other day. They attacked Israel 200 times. There have also been, you can go on Wikipedia and see this, okay? There have been approximately 48,000 Islamic terror attacks in the last 42 years. 48,000 Islamic terror attacks of varying sizes in the last 42 years. That's an average, just an average, of around 1,400 per year. There's only 365 days in a year. What does that show you? The mindset, the gearing, the propensity for war amidst that belief. It's undeniable. 48,000 attacks in 40 years, 1,400 attacks on average per year. This is ridiculous. Okay? And you got 200 attacks on Israel, and then Israel responds. Well, you know what the Houthis did? I think, if I'm getting the news right in my memory, they actually flew a drone that had bombs on it into a kibbutz. So they flew an armed drone with bombs into a populated residential location and blew it up. By the grace of God, not many people died. Right? One of 200 attacks. Israel responds, and I think one person died and 80 got wounded. But the media is always demonizing Israel. The Bible said this would happen. Go listen to any rabbi teaching that the hatred against the Jews would increase before the Messiah's arrival. Okay, and it's happening. Even people who weren't anti-Semitic are now anti-Semitic. There's so much anti-Semitism around the world and in America and everywhere. It's sickening. They're beating up random Jewish people in the streets and attacking them. There's so much anti-Semitism. It is absolutely undeniable, okay, that the Messiah is coming soon. It is undeniable, okay, absolutely undeniable, okay. So all I can say is get ready, watch, be ready, and prepare. Blessed is he who is waiting earnestly, is coming at a prescribed time. He will not tarry. Like Revelation 9 says, when the chief 4 fallen angels are finally released, as per Revelation 9, at the 6th trumpet, it says that they were prepared for the hour, the day, and the year to slaughter 1/3 of the human population. There is an exact hour that all of this is appointed for, an exact day, in an exact year. And all of the evidence shows that it's 2024. Other tangible world events that confirm that the end is upon us. Let us not forget that starting in around 2009, 2010, I used to document this on one of my old channels. You have the apocalypse noises being heard around the world. They started back then, a little early, but it's not that long ago. That was like 15 years, right? So, but what they are is amazing because no scientist has solved what they are. Scientists who can land probes on Mars cannot even understand what these giant sounds are that the whole world is hearing, that is being reported in the news, that is being investigated by authorities. They're not fake sounds. There's a lot of fake videos, but millions of people are hearing sky trumpets, whatever you want to call them. Sounds like giant shofars blowing, okay? Giant sounds like growls and like giant titan kaiju monsters screeching and growling and walking and stomping underground. Crazy, mechanical, weird, bizarre noises up in the sky and everything. These things are real, and science can't even explain them. So if the end was coming, and we got these things taking place at the same time, that just adds to the credibility of everything. Does it not? Does it not? What was part of what I'm saying? The fallen angels in the film, underground, they released 1948, but the big shots, the chiefs, are still under there. The big ones. Okay? The big ones. And if you're a big one, bound in these giant iron chains and gates like the New Testament, like Enoch says, they are bound in these giant chains under the mountains until the day of the Lord returns. Okay? If they're moving around the chains, if they're moving the giant iron gates and moving the giant stone blocks, stop and think what a giant metal tube gate, like hollow metal tubes, and you're pushing it. If it scrapes on a stone ground, what does it sound like? It sounds like a giant type of trumpet, a metallic hollow resonation screeching, okay? Half of the sounds that the world has heard are that, okay? I used to have a compilation of videos. I don't anymore. But I went through all the hundreds of different videos out there. There were literally sounds that could only be something like giant beasts or monsters howling and shrieking, like something the size of Godzilla, okay? And stomping on the ground. There's one video where something was walking by underground. You could hear left foot, right foot in different location. As it got further away, the sound diminished. There's too much evidence, folks, that these things are down there. That's physical evidence. You want physical evidence that even science can't deny? That's physical evidence. They got 15 years to explain it. They can't, right? You got so many UFOs showing up overhead. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. In Mexico and South America, there's UFOs everywhere. If you don't watch South American news and stuff like that, you don't know about this. They're everywhere down there. They're interacting with people very frequently down there. Look at the Las Vegas UFO crash. You got really weird things happening now that never used to happen, and they're happening. Okay? So don't tell me that we don't have these signs showing us that something big is about to take place. Okay? Something big is about to take place. All right? Why do you think, I'm just throwing this one out there too. Why do you think that we landed on the moon in the 60s, never went back there for 60 years, right? Nobody ever went to the dark side of the moon. But in all the lore, we know what's on the dark side of the moon. Okay, there are some photos, old ones. We apparently know what's on the dark side of the moon, but you got to stop and wonder, if we went there in the early 60s, we're in the 60s, why didn't we go back to the moon for all this time? Why is it when a giant meteor struck the moon that it rung like it was hollow for hours, I think it was? It just kept ringing and resonating. There's so many mysterious things, okay? The moon itself is a mystery. It's an enigma, okay? God said that he put all those things up in the heavens as signs for us, signs of the times, okay? There's a lot of mystery to this world, but it's all happening right now, and we can see it, okay? There is going to be a cosmic battle, just like Revelation says. When Jesus arrives, Satan will be released from his prison within the earth. And just like Revelation says, the chief of the fallen angels and Abaddon will also be released from underground. Okay? And when they come up to the surface, they will gather their minions and they will do battle against Christ when he arrives from the heavens. There's going to be a cosmic battle. People are having prophetic dreams about this. I've had my prophetic dream about that since I was 8 or 9 years old. I detail it for about 15 pages in one of my chapters here. Okay? There's going to be a cosmic battle. All right? And if it's so true that there's going to be a cosmic battle, you would have to see a lot of UFOs, right? Well, we do see a lot of UFOs. Why are the UFOs here? How did they get here? Why would they spend so much energy? Sorry for my sweat. Why would they spend so much energy? How could they, according to our physics, even get here? They need the energy of a whole sun just to travel the light years to get here. And it would take hundreds of years or something, 1,000 years to get here. Our physics can't explain how they're even here. But there's so many UFOs here of all different shapes and sizes. They're examining military facilities. Even the military is declassified and talked about this stuff. They've been over nuclear bases, examining and decommissioning nuclear missiles. There's just too much. Why is all this happening? I'll tell you why it's happening, because there's about to be a cosmic battle. Because Daniel, chapter 7 says that when the Messiah returns, he'll be coming from the heavens with the hosts of the heaven, just like the New Testament got about a dozen or two verses where it says that when Jesus arrives, he's coming with the armies of the heavens, the hosts of the heavens, the heavenly army. The heavenly army of the messengers will be arriving with Jesus. And when they arrive in the sky, it says that Satan and his army will mount up to attack them. Okay? They will do great battle. The stars it'll look like the stars are falling to the earth. Okay? This happens when Jesus arrives. Jesus arrives at the sound of the great trumpet, the final trumpet. Okay? All of this is about to occur. Now, if those things are about to actually occur, you would expect to see some crazy stuff when you look up. And that's why, folks, we've been seeing a lot of crazy stuff. Like I said, why are all the UFOs flying around? They're up to something. They're watching us. What are they watching us for? Why are they even here? How did they get here? Right? There's only one solution. It's a biblical one. Okay, a biblical one. They always used to tell people that if the UFO truth came out, that it would end all world religions. That's a lie. They knew from 1940 something. They knew back then the biblical reality to this. And I don't know why they might add other reasons to keep it secret, but the blatant fact is it's a biblical reality to this. Revelation 12 says that Satan and his messengers once lived up in the heavens. The heavens, according to the Bible, is where the sun, moon, stars, and constellations are. Okay, it's where the host of the heavens, the living celestial beings are that serve God, stand on his right and left, stand on his right side. They bow to God, they serve God, they worship God, they do work for God. They come to they come to this earth and do things for mankind or against mankind on behalf of God. These are the messengers, okay? And why are there so many of them around the earth? Why did they show up when Israel was reborn? Come on, and don't take rocket science here, okay? It does not take rocket science. All of this is happening for a reason, folks, okay? Stop and ask yourself right now. This is a really good question. Why are there literally documented thousands of UFOs at any given time flying around our planet? None of them are attacking us. They're not colonizing us. They're not invading us. They're not kidnapping us. You know, one or two abductions or whatever, maybe. But what are they doing? Thousands at any given moment that we know of and have tracked. Why are they all here monitoring and observing us? Shutting down nuclear missiles, some of them. Why is all this happening? Ask yourself that. That's a tangible thing, mystery taking place on this planet right now that nobody seems to try, nobody wants to find an answer for. It's like everybody's just avoiding it, like the elephant in the room. Everybody's gotten used to the fact that UFOs are flying around everywhere. Normally, that's not a good thing. You know what I mean? If they were good, if they were bad, you would think they would land and interact, right? You think something's got to be happening. Something is stirring up and brewing. Something is. Okay? When you look at the Bible, what the Bible says will happen, well, it says that there's going to be a heavenly battle of of bad aliens, Satan and his lot, fighting against the angels who are coming out from the heavens. So the Bible is the perfect solution to all of this. Revelation 12, like I said, Satan was cast out of the heavens. He's not allowed up there anymore. After Jesus died, Jesus and the archangels cast him and all his messengers out of the heavens and bound them here. They've been here for thousands of years, bound to the earth. Maybe they can go to the moon as well. Maybe that counts as part of the earth, right? Dark side of the moon. Why didn't we go back to the dark side of the moon? You go look at the Transformer movie name titles, right? The fallen ones and the dark side of the moon and all this. There's a lot of people out there who know stuff, okay? It's been known and talked about since the 50s when they first interviewed and spoke with the beings from these crashes, okay? These beings that claim to have created us and there are gods and all this and that, all that nonsense, okay? So that's what it is. So don't say I didn't warn you, folks. Everybody get ready. At any given moment, one of all these other Gog Magog nations can mount together and just pitch a huge attack on Israel. And that's going to be it. That's going to be like Zechariah, like Ezekiel, and like Revelation all collectively say that when that attack, Gog and Magog swarm around Israel to attack it, that is when the end is going to suddenly arrive. And like Jesus said, like sudden destruction, okay? Like the days of Noah and like the day Sodom and Gomorrah were destroyed. Okay, it's going to be sudden. So my word of warning to everybody is to get yourself ready spiritually. Okay, I don't even think there's time to fuss and worry about doctrine and dogma. At the end of the day, God wants you to be a good person. Okay, be a good person. Very, very simple. If you're worried about what's good, what's bad, it's not rocket science. Just be a good person. Be good in all ways. If there's something that you're doing or thinking or whatever that's bad, it's very easy. It's either good or it's bad. If it's bad, don't do it. Okay, there you go. Perfect religion. Just be a good person. If you can at least get that down pat and be a good person, you're actually doing what Judaism and Christianity truly theologically tell you to do as God's law. Be a good person. So start being a good person now. Reform now from all your sins like Jesus and God commanded us to do. Okay, reform from your sins and get ready. Okay, because it could happen imminently, suddenly, at any given moment. And don't say that I didn't warn you. Okay? We've got 150 something days left of this year. It could occur at any point in those days. It might even occur at the start of 2025. But it's undeniable that has been physically 6,000 years from the first mortal human born of a woman, whom was Seth. 6,000 years exactly. For 6 days, remember, the curse upon mankind from Eden was that man will be cursed as a mortal to work and toil by the sweat of his brow. Okay? Mortals have had 6,000 years. Mortals, meaning born of a woman. 6,000 years are the days that we work in by the sweat of our brow. And then will come the day of rest, the Sabbath millennium. Okay? In the book of Hebrews, it says that there does remain a day of rest unto God, even for the Gentiles, because Gentiles weren't meant to keep the Jewish Sabbath. The Jewish Sabbath commemorated the exodus of the Hebrews from Egypt. And God specifically says the Sabbath is for you alone and not for anybody else in the world. Christians don't know that, right? So Gentiles aren't meant, you can keep it if you want. Some rabbis teach we should be punished for doing that, but whatever, let's not get into arguments. Gentiles aren't meant to keep the Sabbath, according to the Bible. But in Hebrews, it says, however, for the Gentiles, a Sabbath day of rest does remain. And it compares coming into the rest of God as receiving salvation at the end of days and going on to your better world in the Edenic future world. Okay, that is entering into God's rest. And it says there does remain, however, a day of Sabbath rest, even for all the Gentiles, for all the world. And this is the Sabbath millennia. Okay, go read Psalm 90. Go get my books and study them. Okay, go check all my videos. You don't want to buy the books, just go check the videos. I got most of all the material there as well. Not all of it, most of it. Okay, the seventh millennia is coming. Okay, that is when he will rest. Okay, you have 6 days to gather. Remember, when the Sabbath was introduced, it was about gathering up the manna. Okay, and on the 6th day, you had to gather double because you're not allowed to gather anything on the 7th. Why? Because it's rest. You can't work, do any labor on the 7th. So we have the 6 days to work, toil by the sweat of our brows, mortals, and then it stops. And there will be no more labor, no more mortal toil. Okay, because it stops at the 6,000. Okay, now if the 6,000 year was 200 years away from now, I wouldn't be here making that claim. But all right there on the first chapter, mapped out on the page, is undeniable. This is the 6,000th year from the birth of the first mortal who came out of a woman, whom was Seth, from whom the biblical lineage is taken for mortals. Undeniable. Not from Cain or Abel, but from Seth. Okay? So don't say I didn't warn you, folks. Don't say I didn't warn you. Anyways, God bless you all. Everybody take care.